Hey folks, Steve here. So you just downloaded this model and you're wondering how exactly do I ungroup it, pull it apart, and measure it so I can begin building this thing. Well, here we are in SketchUp. Here's the model just about as you should see it when you open it up. You can see I've got the orbit tool on right now, invoked by pressing the O key. This allows me to look around in space. And I'm also going to use the pan tool for viewing, which is invoked by the H key. And you can see this allows me to pull around in just two axes. So, that being said, let's say we want to start building this thing. I'll give you an example of how we do that. So, back to the orbit key. Spacebar invokes the select key, which you'll also see up here. And let's select it. And you can see that once I select it, it's grouped. Each of these pieces are grouped and can be ungrouped. So how do we do that? Number one, let's use the M key for move. And let's pull this out over here. Hey, look at that. And you can see that reveals our base. So spacebar for select. Select that. Let's move that out of the way. All right. And this would be, of course, the first piece that we're building. Now, if I want to see exactly what my measurements are for this, well, in some cases I can leave it grouped. Let's say, for instance, I want to take a look at the run on this dimensional lumber. I move over here to my dimension key. I start at an endpoint and click to another endpoint. Zoom in if you need to, and click. And you can see that is 1 foot 3 inches. Of course, there's always more than one way to skin the cat in SketchUp. We can also use the tape measure tool, invoked by pressing T or just clicking over here. And again, drag that from endpoint to endpoint. You can see that this piece is 1 foot. Generally speaking, I'm going to hit escape to get out of that. I like to use this measurement tool because it keeps the measurements I take persistent on the screen as I'm working. But we always come to, all right, now I need to disassemble this a little bit more because I want to see what this inside piece is, right? So let's zoom out. You can use the mouse wheel for that, or you can press Z for zoom. Let's go here and let's select this again. Now we're going to need to ungroup this. So edit group, and you can see we can now ungroup. Edit group again, and that brings us to our constituent components. If you remember from our first tutorial, when grouping in SketchUp, if done properly, creates a hierarchy. So as I was making this base, I was grouping each of the constituent larger pieces. So here we go. If I ungroup here, you can see that this is grouped, and then I can ungroup again, and that brings me down to these individual components. So if I need to measure this piece, for instance, I will simply move this out of the way, and then I will take a measurement, endpoint to endpoint, and you can see that that piece is 2 feet. When I'm done, I use Control Z, which is the undo key, to back out of the changes that I made, and I'll keep backing out here until I think I've actually got everything rebuilt again. Hey, look at that. You can always put it back together again using the move key if you take it apart too far for undo to work. So that's one example. Let's say we want to take a look up here. We can move this out of the way. I can then ungroup this. When that's ungrouped, you can see I'm just pulling the components apart. I'm going to ungroup again by clicking edit group, and again edit group, and now you can see I'm down to individual components that make up this piece. All its little constituent bits here, and then I can once again bring up my measurement key. You can see that that's 9 inches. If you're terrible at math like I am, I could even pan along and zoom in. I can see that that's 7 inches, or I could try to get fancy here. I'll probably just blow up the whole tutorial here. Use the protractor key if I'm one of those folks that likes to know where the angles are. Oop, and I gotta start from here, then to here, then down to here, and I can see that that is a 45-degree angle. I can see that angle down here. So that should have been obvious to some folks who looked at the 9 inches and 7 inches. Other folks like me who really suck at math, not so obvious. So I use all these little tricks as I'm moving along through my SketchUps. And that, in a nutshell, is how you pull apart grouped items to take measurements and keep working and get yourself a perfectly dimensionally accurate plan as you're building. So thanks, folks. I hope that helped.